In this episode, I wanted to introduce a new episode type called CLI Monday. The idea being that we'll review useful command line utilities every Monday. Today we're going to review the head, tail, and word count commands. These three commands are actually really basic, but come in very handy because in my day-to-day work I often find myself working with or viewing text files. To highlight why these commands are useful, I searched online for a sample log file, and NASA is nice enough to publish some. So I went ahead and downloaded a web server log file from 1995, which we'll be using in our examples today. As you can see, I've downloaded the log file and it's sitting in a directory. But how do you get a feeling for what the file looks like, along with how many entries it has, without actually loading the entire file into an editor? Let's start off by using the head command, which will by default grab the first 10 lines of the file and output them. So without actually loading the entire file, we're able to get a sense of what the format looks like. Next, the WC or word count command will give us a count of the lines in a file. I should mention that I almost always use the word count command with the -L switch, so that the count is based off the number of lines in a file. Finally, the tail command functions in a similar manner to the head command, except that by default it looks at the last 10 lines of a file. So based off these three commands, we now know what the file looks like, that it spans from July 1st, 95 till July 28th, 1995. And the word count tells us that there are roughly 1.8 million rows. I highly recommend checking out the manual pages for these commands, as there are other switches you can use to alter their default behavior. But this example basically sums up what these commands do. So what would a real-world use case be for these commands? Well, I often find myself reviewing log data while troubleshooting issues. For example, say that you're debugging an issue and have narrowed it down to a specific service, and this service logs events to a file. Well, rather than continually opening that log file to look for new events, the tail command allows you to follow the log file in real time, printing out new events as they happen. As a demonstration, we'll replay the NASA web server log, and then we can look at how this works in practice. So, as you can see by running the WC-L command multiple times, that the file is continually getting new entries. Now let's use the tail command with the -F or follow option so that we get to see these new events in real time. I honestly cannot tell you how useful this is for debugging and reproducing problems, mainly by doing something and then watching the log for new data in real time. By the way, as a bonus, here are the commands used for replaying the NASA web server log file, but I'll leave this as an exercise for you to figure out how it works. Alright, that concludes this episode. Thanks for watching. If you would like to get notified about future episodes, please subscribe to my mailing list. You can do this by going to the Get Notified link in the header and entering your email address. Have questions, comments, or concerns about this episode? What about episode ideas? I'd love to hear your feedback, either good or bad. Shoot me an email, justin@sysadmincasts.com.